Hello everyone, welcome to 9-Inch Charge. Today I'm going to do a follow-up to the rumour video that I posted a little while ago and talk about the 3 new factions that could possibly be coming to the Mortal Realms and just have a think about what they might look like, how they might play, and also have a think about 2 other new sub-factions which may be coming to the game in the future as well. Just before we start, if you enjoy this video, please be sure to drop it a like. I know everybody on YouTube says this, but it does genuinely really mean a lot, and it just helps people find the channel and helps us to grow. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, please subscribe to the channel. YouTube is telling me that people are coming back to view the channel again and again, which is really fantastic, but not everybody is subscribing, so hopefully this is the video that earns your subscription. The first faction I want to talk about today are the Umbreon F. Now these would be a new race of elves who hail from Ulgu and worship Malarian, who is the Shadow King. They would kind of be the equal and the opposite of the Lumineth, which would be a really fun thing to see in the realms. Malarian, called the Shadow King, is the incarnate god of shadow, deception and delusion in the mortal realms, and one of the gods of the elven people. Malarian is a being of great and terrible darkness, a malefic deity whose mastery of the illusory arts is surpassed by none. Once a mortal dark elf in the world that was named Malkith, Malarian is as old as any being who roams the mortal realms, as ancient as Sigmar and the ever-chosen of Chaos himself. Now, Archaon has actually launched some attacks into Ulgu to try and conquer Malarian's realm, and what seemed to happen when he did this was that the armies marched forth, and then the realm was covered in shadow. And then when the shadow lifted or the mist cleared, all that was left was just the dead bodies of the Chaos army. So that's really cool that he has this ability, mastery of illusion, mastery of shadows. You don't really know what's going on. I'd love to see that playstyle represented on the tabletop by a new faction. I think that would be something really great. We do have a unit that kind of hails or looks similar to something that we might see from them in the Canaanite Shadowstalkers, and the Canaanite Shadowstalkers are absolutely phenomenal models, really great aesthetically, and their playstyle is really cool as well. They have an ability to teleport all the way around the table, and I think that's something that would be really good to see here, is that they might bait you into combat, and when you finally get to them, maybe not in the combat phase, maybe in the subsequent move phase, they can then teleport out of combat somewhere else and kind of leave your units and army out of position. I think that would be really great to see. So there are some people in the mortal realms who do revere the Shadow King. He's revered outside of the realm of Ulgu, though not as widely as he once was in the Age of Myth. His worship extends to a handful of secretive priesthoods in the dark corners of the mortal realms, and those battle mages of the Grey College wise enough to know the true source of their magical power. It's also been suggested that some Darkling Shadow Blades, the Dread Assassins of Sigmar, wear gifts from Malarian and ultimately owe their fealty to him, the Shadow King. The last thing to say about Malarian is that in the lore there's a story where he meets Morathi and he meets her in the realm of Ulgu, and when he meets her she's surrounded by these shadow demons, and there's been some sort of interaction between Malarian and shadow demons, and there might be some sort of slightly chaotic element to him, or we don't quite know what these shadow demons are, and I think that would be something really cool to see brought to life. Next up we have the Dawnbringer Crusades. The Dawnbringer Crusades are an expansion to the cities of Sigmar. They set forth from the cities of Sigmar with massive floating islands that they tow, and large caravans, monoliths and altars, and they seek to go into the land still controlled or corrupted by chaos and settle to form new cities of Sigmar. Aesthetically, they look to be, from the artwork, a reboot of the Devoted of Sigmar. They have a kind of war altar and warrior priests, or some kind of priesthood. There have been some very limited releases for them already in the form of, firstly, a new terrain kit, which is a really cool twist on traditional terrain kits. Normally in fantasy games you see old ruined towers and ruin this and ruin that, but the Dawnbringer Crusade terrain kit is of a city actually being built on top of an old ruin. So they've gone out and they're starting to build a new city on top of these ruins and expand Sigmar's civilization. In the center of their cities they have something called an aqualith, and this comes from the realm of life, and what it does is it purifies the realm or the area around the city so that it doesn't just get overgrown and tainted straight away before they start. I don't know if you remember, but when Dominion came out, if you ordered it directly from Games Workshop, you get a box of Coin Malice Command tokens that Games Workshop were giving away for free with every order. And these are actually talismans that the Dawnbringer Crusades themselves wear, and they're kind of like their emblem or their symbol. And they have different ones for different Crusades, and they're all minted for the Crusaders when they go out. Personally, I think that this is something that I'd really like to see in the Mortal Realms, because I always liked the idea of the warrior priests and the devoted of Sigmar, the flagellants and the war altar of Sigmar, and all these kind of religious zealots who would go out and do Sigmar's will in the Mortal Realms to the best of their ability. And it's something that we've kind of lost. A lot of the models have gone away. A lot of them were very old kits. I think that the warrior priest was still metal or fine cast, and it would just be great to see these return and to see the God King's will being done in the realms. Because although we've moved past the Realm Gate Wars, it doesn't mean that he's going to stop there and just be satisfied with what he's got. The war against chaos is still ongoing, and these are the ordinary people who live in this really fantastical realm that are going to have to go toe to toe with demons and monsters in order to do this. And it just kind of gives you an insight into what being a human in the mortal realms would be, and you can kind of put yourself in their position. So really looking forward to seeing these and hope these come out soon. Next we have the Oathbreakers, who are rumoured to be the old Chaos Dwarves that we remember from Warhammer Fantasy Battles come back. In the world that was, they had an alliance with the Empire of the Hobgoblins, and in Age of Sigmar they also seem to have an alliance with the Crawl Boys. Now in the Crawl Boys battle tome it tells us of their trading together, so the Oathbreakers buy slaves from the Crawl Boys, and the Crawl Boys give them the most substandard and weak slaves, and the Oathbreakers give the Crawl Boys forged weapons and armour, the weak and most substandard weapons and armour, and each thinks they have the better part of that deal. There isn't much more that we know about them, to be honest, and we have seen a couple of Chaos Dwarves new models be released for Age of Sigmar. Actually in Warcry there are 2 Chaos Dwarves, so maybe this is a little teaser or preview of things to come. Previously they had a very Mesopotamian feel to them, with giant bull centaurs and plaited beards, and it's an aesthetic that hasn't really been explored in any fantasy game that I know of, other than Warhammer Fantasy Battles. And Warhammer Fantasy Battles tended to have a very Western-centric aesthetic, so it was a very welcome thing to see, a little bit of diversity in the range and other things explored, and it's something that I definitely welcome in Age of Sigmar as well. They had a really extensive and interesting range, ranging from, as we said, bull centers to siege weapons and a train and even fire demons. I think that it would be a no-brainer really for Games Workshop to try and bring these back, especially as they could possibly be used in the upcoming Old World game as well. And we have seen Games Workshop do this, where they release models that can be used in multiple games. For example, demons, you're able to use them in Age of Sigmar and 40k, so why not let us have some Chaos Dwarves that we can use in the Old World and Age of Sigmar as well. Next up we have the Order of Azir. This is a range that we've already got 3 models for. They are another city sub-faction, and they've been featured quite heavily in the lore. Novels such as Callus and Toll tell about their order. There's a lot of flavor text about them in Warhammer Quest, because Yelson Darroch is an ex-member of the order, and obviously now we have the Vendenst, and they've been released as full members of the order and specialist spell or witch hunters. So the order are an order of witch hunters or vampire hunters, and they're a little bit like the secret police of the mortal realms. They're agents of Sigmar who pledge their lives to rid the cities and other regions of Sigmar's empires of the corruption of chaos and death. They're given free rein in their mission and answer directly to Sigmar, so even those in the highest positions of nobility and leadership are known to respect and fear them, lest they be put down by blade, fire or execution. They work very closely with the Lord Veritans from the Stormcast Eternals, both having similar roles. And they have the human keyword, so they can make Flagellants battle line. And this actually makes sense, as the Flagellants are some of the most loyal devotees of Sigmar, who long to drive out heresy and chaos cultists from the cities. They have a series of blessed and consecrated weapons at their disposal, so they are natural anti-magic dispellers and fight harder against certain factions, so they may get bonuses to hit, for example, against chaos and death. I don't feel like these will turn into a fully fledged army, but there's something definitely there that ties into the Dawnbringer Crusades and this new kind of rebooting of Cities of Sigmar that we see. I'd like to see them as quite a solid sub-faction, and to have their own rules for commanding troops on the tabletop, and looking at being anti-magic, looking at enemy heroes and wizards and what they can do to take them out. Something a bit different from an assassin, someone who can actually have agents and units on the tabletop that work in their favour. And the last faction that I think we might see make an appearance on the tabletop is the Kwalathas. Worshippers of the god of the hunt, both wild and fey, spiritual avatars of nature in its most primal and aggressive state, they relentlessly hunt down those who would taint the mortal realms. We've had 2 releases so far. Firstly, in Kwalathas the Exile, who is from Warhammer Quest Cursed City, and secondly in the warband for Warhammer Underworld's Skaith's Wild Hunt. Now, Kurnoth, who they worship, seems to be Orion, who was Ariel's consort in the world that was. He was slain by Nurgle in the Battle of Tears, but his remains returned to Alarielle, and she may well be able to bring about his return. And actually, in Warhammer Fantasy battles, rituals were performed to resurrect Orion every year. It would be great to see a new Wood Elf aesthetic with an Age of Sigmar twist. There's some really cool units that they could bring back. For example, Orion always fought with his hunting hounds, but now we have Lygian the lion. And they already do kind of look a bit like Wood Elves. I think if we compare Kwalathas the Exile to the old Waywatcher model, it is very much a reimagining of that kind of range, and it's something that I'd really like to see return. I do love the Sylvaneth, and I love their aesthetic and everything like that, but I think they are a little bit limited in their aesthetic. There's only so much you can do with tree people. They need to add in something a bit more diverse to the range. Let's have some animals, let's have a Beastmaster, let's have some elves, let's have more centaurs, and let's have a model for Kurnoth. Because what Age of Sigmar really needs is a power couple. Okay, so that's everything covered. Those are the 5 factions that are my choices, but let me know in the comments what you think about these and what other new factions would you like to see in the game. It'd be great to start a conversation and just to start speculating and talk about our wish listing and things like that. So be sure to drop a comment. If you enjoyed the video, please drop it a like, and if you'd like to see more like this in the future, please subscribe. As ever, I've been 9 Charge. I hope all your charge rolls are at least a 9, and I will catch you next time.